What's up, everybody? I got a new mic as I promised in my last video. So I'll lift it up here. I actually have a real mic. So hopefully the audio is a little better moving forward. That was definitely a long time coming. It's been really bad for a really long time. I know some of my older videos are straight up like horrific in terms of audio. So apologies for that. So today, I just wanted to share like a super quick build. I've been really pleasantly surprised with Trinity. I hadn't tried her too much. She got reworked recently with 1999. She was always one of my favorite frames when I started, because actually the reason I started Warframe was because I got Trinity Prime for free. I'd tried Warframe out a couple times before, but then I got her Trinity Prime and Vectis Prime for free from a Twitch drop. And that's actually what got me into Warframe all those years ago. So in the past, I've made some videos about Trinity as like a nuker frame with Marked for Death and Energy Vampire. But in the spirit of like trying to not use Helminth abilities and seeing what you can get out of a frame, I've kind of just been messing around with her as like an actual support frame. Now I know she's not as good as Wisp because Wisp has speed motes, and really like speed motes are what make Wisp really good, right? But now that we have activities like EDA and ETA, I actually think that there's like a little bit more room in Warframe for support type builds. Like everybody loves when you see a Dante on your team in EDA or ETA and you're like, oh yeah, like this is going to be so much easier because Dante is spamming overshields, or overguard rather. So like what happened to Trinity that made her so much better in my opinion? So I think one of the issues with shields versus overguard just in general is that overguard makes you immune to status effects and shields don't. So Overguard is pretty much always going to be better in that respect. Now, what they did was really with Trinity's Well of Life, so I'll go to her abilities here. So Well of Life actually, when you cast Well of Life on an enemy, it actually absorbs status effects that would go to an ally. In addition, if an ally dies, it's like a Oberon's Augment, which I think it's like Phoenix Renewal or something like that. So they get to res, which, you know, dying in Warframe isn't really that big of a deal ordinarily because in most missions your team can just res you. But in EDA and ETA specifically, it's actually kind of bad if you die, because you have to summon a Void Angel, and man, like a level 500 something Void Angel is no joke. Even if your build is good, even if you happen to get good choices that week, it can be pretty rough. So it's much better if you can just avoid dying in the first place. So I actually think the Well of Life changes for her solved a huge problem that support Trinity had in the past, where yes, you can always give your team a ton of shields between Blessing, restoring shields, and then Energy Vampire restoring shields over time. You've always been really good at supporting your team in that way and also giving them damage reduction, but status effects at high levels just rip through shields super fast, and that's what makes Overguard so strong. Well of Life kind of solves that problem. So if you just kind of keep your Well of Life up, so usually what I do is I cast Energy Vampire on an enemy and then I immediately Well of Life the same enemy. So you get the other thing that they changed was that like you're no longer incentivized to have low duration to make the most out of Energy Vampire, which is really nice. So if you have more duration, you actually just get more energy rather than the same amount of energy being spread over a longer time frame. So the fact that you don't have to like build weird stats for different builds on Trinity, you can kind of just have high duration and high range and enough strength to max out your damage reduction on your Blessing, and enough strength to strength is also nice because you get more enemies for your Link, and you also want to get to that 100% armor reduction for abating Link. So, you know, you can constantly keep your team's shields up. You make them immune to status effects. If they do die, they get like a cheat death, which is a minute cooldown, which, I mean, honestly, like, think about a lot of ETA missions last like 30-40 minutes. Like, you can save, you know, a lot of time with this. And then Link is just it's almost like Trinity's like offensive ability because it has that armor strip. I also really like that they made Link not stop your motion. So they made it a one-handed upper body animation, which is really nice because it doesn't stop when you're reloading and you can cast it while moving. So I just ignore the Archon shards. Honestly, you don't really need Archon shards for this build. I just was kind of messing around with her passive because her new passive is that your enemies in range get a percentage of your max energy as health. So brief respite, I mean, obviously she's like a shield or shield based frame, so like you don't like really need this. You can kind of run whatever on her, but like, you know, you could maybe run corrosive projection or whatnot. But honestly, like, the whole point of this build is just helping people not die and relying on your weapons and your teammates to do damage. So I like primed redirection to get up to that maximum shield gating and vulnerability window. You don't care about efficiency at all, so, you know, why go for additional strength? So you want to max out your blessing damage. There's a couple breakpoints with this build. You want to max out your damage reduction from blessing. You also want to max out the armor reduction from abating Link, but beyond that, you do still get some benefit because you get additional energy and damage from Energy Vampire. So Flow is really there just for the synergy with her passive more than anything. A little bit of range, a little bit of duration, a little bit of strength from Blind Rage and Umbrella Intensify. Here you could really run whatever in the Exila slot. I was messing around with like heavy attack builds. That's why this was here. You could also have, you know, like Prime Sure-Footed or whatever, but you don't really need anything in that slot now. So kind of whatever you want. I do like Molt Augmented for even more energy. Now, like, energy is also nice because it does further increase your survivability, because the more energy you have, or sorry, the more strength you have, the more energy you're giving your allies, which means the better vampire leeches. So these are the two augments I really like on her. This final arcane, you can kind of use whatever you want. I was kind of looking at a build where you actually tried to get health and you used Arcane Bellicose. There's, you know, Arcane Battery isn't really very usable. You could go Arcane Aegis for a lot more survivability, or you don't really need Energize. Like, this is where you can kind of put whatever you want, honestly. The ones that I usually go for are Aegis for like maximum survivability, or something like, you know, a little more memey, like the Arcane Pistolier or whatever. Like, those are kind of nice. Arcane Steadfast is like not too bad, honestly, because your abilities do cost a lot of energy, so like, you know, it's whatever. Molt Efficiency is actually pretty nice as well, so that just gives you a little bit of extra duration. So you can kind of put whatever you want there. You know, I prefer like the higher survivability route. So yeah, so, you know, just keep it kind of short. Just want to say thanks for motivating me to get a mic. Give Trinity a shot, you know, and like, content in Warframe has gotten a lot harder over the years, so it's much more difficult to survive in some of the harder missions. So she can be a nice complement to a team in things like Elite Deep Archimedia or Temporal Archimedia. So give her a shot. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching.